I fell in love with the cello. Somehow, even from the back of my elementary school auditorium, when the orchestra played, I knew that the cello was meant for me. Over the years in middle school, I realized that nothing made the angst of middle school disappear. Acne, boyfriends, no boyfriends, fights with parents, like diving into the opening chords of the Haydn Cello Concerto in C. Over the years, when I got to junior high school, my beloved Fine Arts Center was in danger of being cut from the budget. So I joined other students at a protest where our Governor Richard Riley was speaking, and television reporters were there, and I was asked, why does it matter? Who cares? And with all the passion of a 16-year-old, I said, because we're going to make you proud one day. Your investment in us is going to make South Carolina proud one day. And I think back to that moment now, and I think, who organized us? One person alone could not possibly have saved our school. But I learned early on that a group of passionate people with a common cause could change the world and change the community and make it better for all of us. I'm pleased to say that the Fine Arts Center is still there today, graduating amazing musicians and writers and dancers and artists. Some of the ones that I went to school with are making a difference today. Betsy Bishop is a mezzo-soprano, and they just recently had an article on her at Washington Post. Bob Moody is conducting Portland Symphony, Memphis Symphony. He was just recently named Memphis Symphony's new principal conductor. He guest conducts all across the world. And Kelly Hall Tompkins, who is fiddler, the real fiddler, and Fiddler on the Roof right now, and just recently won the Medal of Excellence from the Sphinx Artists. The other thing that I learned at that moment, at that time, was that the arts aren't always seen as important, that not everyone understands that the arts are as essential to living as breathing, and that sometimes we have to put down our cello bows and use our voices to explain why the arts are essential to a community. And so with all the passion of someone that's been in the field for over 20 years, today I'd like to tell you 4 fundamentals that an orchestra brings its community, and should your orchestra find itself in a little financial trouble or even a big financial trouble, 4 essential steps to a transformation, to a turnaround. The 3 orchestras that I will use today as my examples are Mobile Symphony in Mobile, Alabama, Arkansas Symphony here in Little Rock, and Seattle Symphony. First, teamwork, all in, all play. There's no better example than an orchestra of what is possible. The breathtaking beauty that happens when we all play together, you realize that we're far greater than the sum of our individual parts. Second fundamental that an orchestra, professional orchestra brings its community is celebrate milestones. Can we get married? Can we walk down the aisle without Pachelbel Canon? No. Can you do Christmas without the Hallelujah Chorus? Absolutely not. You need an orchestra because you need professional musicians to live in your community to make those moments great for all of us. Third fundamental is joy. An orchestra brings joy to its community in different ways. One, we teach young musicians, so we teach beginners. I make it a rule to never talk over Beethoven, much less Beethoven 9. Orchestras, professional musicians share our joy with young people. We offer the joy of discovery. We create our own new Albert Einsteins. The other thing that we do is we play concerts, and in those moments we can let go of the paperwork of life, and we forget that we forgot to hire a babysitter, and we can enjoy it with our child. When those concerts are our space to remember that we are human and what living is all about. A fourth essential fundamental that an orchestra provides its community is bridge. Bridge to each other. Say we go to a concert and we're there with hundreds or even thousands of people, more than likely those are not your neighbors and your best friends. More than likely those are people that we don't know. In a concert, we learn and we can look around and realize that we are more alike than we are unalike. Other thing that orchestras provide are bridge to different generations, bridge to hope, bridge to the future. So I believe that these are 4 essential elements. Another important one is that music is the universal language of mankind, said Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. When I was 14, I got the chance to go to Dubrovnik, Yugoslavia and perform a side-by-side concert with the Dubrovnik Yugoslavia Orchestra. I was with my Greenville County Youth Orchestra. And at that time, President Tito had just recently passed away. And that meant that Yugoslavia was still one country, and it was still one country practicing communism. And I didn't know that. I was 14 years old. But our conductor knew that. And our conductor picked Leonard Bernstein's West Side Story for us to perform. And some of our musicians were also singers, Bob and Betsy, were 2 of them. And when they got to, I want to be in America, everything free in America, I want to be in America, everything free in America, the audience stood on its feet and cheered and threw flowers at ours. And I will never forget that moment. One, I realized in that moment what a gift I've been given to be born in America. And 2, I realized that music truly is the transformation. Music can be the bridge. My stand partner and I did not speak the same language. He spoke Slavic, I spoke English. But we could read the same notes. We could be in that moment together, and we could smile at each other. And music was the bridge that brought us there. But orchestras are expensive. Going to Yugoslavia was expensive. And so, but it's important. Musicians need to be paid. We've been practicing our craft, most of us from the age of 8, if not earlier than that. And we can't exactly go to the bank and say, I'm sorry, I can't pay my mortgage this month, but I did provide the joy of music to millions of people. Bank's not going to care. Also, I recently had a board member say, well, surely you could just cut down the number of musicians you need. No, that doesn't really work either. It's not as if Beethoven wrote a piece just in case there was a Great Recession. It still takes 60 players on stage to play Beethoven. Star Wars, can you imagine Star Wars with no cello players to play Leia's theme? No, it'd be terrible. Or my personal favorite, Mussorgsky's Pictures and Exhibition. Can you imagine the Great Gate of Kiev opening? With no cymbal player. So we need money. But sometimes it is easier to spend money than it is to raise money. And so sometimes orchestras trip and fall and have to decide if they're going to close the doors or if they're going to try to renew and have a springtime. So I, in my experience, believe that there are 4 essential steps to a turnaround. Clearly, I believe that we need orchestras in our community because we provide very essentials, fundamentals to living. So I believe that there are 4 steps that you can take to transform your orchestra. First is team, all in, all play. I was hired to be executive director of Arkansas Symphony Orchestra in June of 2009. And I got here, and we realized quickly, very quickly, that this orchestra was in serious trouble. The trouble was so serious that we realized that we had about 6 months left to live, and that we were going to run out of cash just in time for Christmas. There would be no Hallelujah chorus. We were going to be gone. And so a group of board members and musicians and staff said, that's not going to happen. We're going to work together to make this work. We're going to figure this out. And so a group of us, a team, pulled together and worked on a financial turnaround plan. And we had to, first thing we had to do, musicians, staff, board, had to check our egos at the door. When we walked into the room for our task force, every person's individual need went away. We were all about serving the team, serving the community, serving the orchestra. We had to look at the data together. We had to look at ticket sales, admission, costs, etc. No matter how ugly it was, we had to be there together. We had to be transparent. And then we also had to listen to each other and decide what was really most important. And as we looked at the financials, we realized that the only way we were going to have a turnaround is with shared sacrifice. It was going to be hard, but we were willing to do it. The musicians and the staff all took pay cuts. Every one of them took a pay cut, and we lost full-time positions. We had to lose some full-time positions in the orchestra and some full-time positions in the staff. And the board stepped up and said, we're going to give more, and the board increased its giving to the orchestra by 300% the first year, and the board has increased its giving to the orchestra by 700% over the last 7 years. It was shared sacrifice, team, all in, all play. Second essential step to a turnaround is to celebrate milestones. Just like you need an orchestra for July 4th to make it great, because how can you have fireworks without an orchestra, right? You need to make sure that you celebrate the milestones in your turnaround. It's hard. It's not easy. So take some time to toast. Take some time to say, what a great concert we had. And take some time to celebrate that you've broken even. I was given a Back in Black t-shirt our very first year here, and I still pull it out every 7 years when we break even. You need to do this. Third essential step is joy. Just like an orchestra provides joy to its community and puts smiles on the face of young people, this is Baltimore Symphony. They're kids in their youth orchestra. Take some time to make sure that you're creating joy in your organization and your symphony. This was when our new music director was hired, his first year. It's his birthday. I love that. So we wanted to make sure that he knew he was welcome, and so musicians and staff and board all got wore crowns. This was our John Williams concert. We had a surprise shark visit. This is Seattle Symphony, which also went through its own turnaround recently, or transformation. And this is a concert that they did with Sir Mix-a-Lot, and their music director's conducting, and Sir Mix-a-Lot did Baby Got Back, and he asked all the women that wanted to be on stage to come up and dance with him. And I talked to my friend Simon Woods, who's president and CEO of Seattle Symphony. He said it was a moment of sheer, delirious, and delicious joy. And if you'd like, you can, YouTube has the video, and over 3.6 million people have watched this video. When you're in a transformation, create as many opportunities for joy as possible. Fourth essential is bridge. When Arkansas Symphony was in its process of beginning its work, our board chair, Martin Thomas, said, Christina, cut us to the cliff, but not over the cliff. Make every cut you can, but nothing that is going to set us up so we can't thrive later. Make sure that we can build our bridge to the future. When I was hired in 1995 with Symphony Concerts of Mobile, I was hired as general manager of Symphony Concerts of Mobile, and we presented 6 concerts by touring orchestras. So there was no orchestra in Mobile. And when I was there maybe 5 days, I got a call from a violin player, and she said, hi, I'm Nancy, and we're wondering if you could play this wedding this weekend. And I went, what? I said, that's flattering, but you don't know me. You don't know if I can play still. And she said, well, we read that you own a cello, and we assume you can play the 8 notes of Pachelbel canon. I said, well, yes, I can. But so as the board went through and did a retreat that summer, we realized that in order to actually truly serve the Mobile Bay community, we needed to build our own orchestra. And so we set about building our own Mobile Symphony in 1996. And one of the reasons why we needed to do that was, one, so we have more cello players for weddings, but if there aren't cello players for weddings, you can imagine how few there were to teach kids. There was one, and she had a 2-year waiting list. So in order to create those music education opportunities, we needed to build an orchestra. And so we did, and we started with a music education program that was in 3 pilot schools with strings. And one tool that you can use as you build bridge to your community is a composer in residence. And Mobile Symphony had Kenji Bunch as our composer in residence. And what Kenji did is he worked with those 3 schools, classes at those 3 schools, and had them create and compose their own melody. And then all year long, they learned their melody, and then they came and performed it on stage with the Mobile Symphony at our March concert. Kenji wrote a piece that for the kids and us, and so on stage was filled with small children with their violins playing with the Mobile Symphony, and in the audience were their families and our regular patrons and their siblings, and there was not a dry eye in the house. With a composer, we were able to demonstrate our bridge to the community. In Seattle, had composer Trimpin. Composer Trimpin was there in Seattle, and he did a program with Path with Art, which in Seattle is a group of people that are transitioning from homelessness to not homeless. They're in their transition to more stability. And these guys got to write a piece and build their own instrument with this composer, because Seattle's building their bridge to the community. Now Seattle's working on a program called Simple Gifts, where Seattle Symphony is working to address the homelessness crisis. In Mobile, we did a program, at Arkansas Symphony, this is Arkansas Symphony. At Arkansas Symphony, we also used a composer, and we also used bridge. Our musicians, our board members were very appreciative of the musicians for taking a pay cut and sacrificing. And so, second year into our turnaround, the board members gave a gift to the musicians for them to use for however they wanted to use it. And what the musicians chose to do was to commission composer Christopher Theophanides, and ask him to write a piece, and they dedicated that piece to the board of directors. So, in conclusion, symphony orchestras and the arts are essential to our communities. We make the communities and our cities better. And if you do find yourself in trouble, you can transform and you can add value to your community. When I was in Mobile, one of the things, the person that took care of my yard as I was moving and leaving town, he stopped me and he said, "Don't you work for the Mobile Symphony?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "I need to tell you thank you." And I said, "Why?" And he said, "Well, my son hated school, and he would make every morning miserable for myself, for my wife, for his mother, his siblings. Every morning was a terror, and every day started off terrible until he could learn how to play the violin. Once you brought violin into his school, he had something that excited him and made him happy to go. You have transformed our entire family. Thank you. And thank you all."